Good morning and welcome to Sports Central, brought to you from Spectrum Television all the way from the hills of Ibiakurin right here in Akwa Ibom State. My name is Mfono Bongitin. I'm excited to be saddled with the responsibility of opening the show this particular morning, coming off the heels of age grade system failure in Nigeria. Talking about the under-17 Golden Eaglets crashing out of the under-17 AFCON, Waffle B rather, and also losing the chance to go to the under-17 AFCON, and as well losing out on the under-17 World Cup coming up later next year. The under-20 as well seek redemption in the next match against Saudi Arabia later in the tournament. Also in the world of tennis, we have retirement bells ringing, and Game on Fields has set 2026 as the year where he gets to drop his racket in on the court rather. Also in world of football, yesterday the Champions League returned and we had lots of mouth-watering fixtures. Nuno Mendes and Lamine Yamal continued. Almost it looks like a reoccurring battle now between the two very young superstars. Yesterday was Paris Saint-Germain who prevailed once again over Barcelona. We'll talk more about this when the show kickstarts fully, but before we start, we'll just take you through what's trending in Sport Wrap-Up. Stick around. Now we'll start from tennis, where Game on Fields says he feels stupidly lucky to have played in a golden era of tennis after announcing he will retire at the end of the 2026 season. The 39-year-old has won 13 titles in his career and became the oldest ATP Tour champion at the age of 38 and 4 months when he won the Auckland Open in January. Monfils' athleticism and all-action displays made him one of the most popular players on tour. However, the world number 53 has struggled with injuries in recent years, and he was forced to retire from last month's Chengdu Open with an ankle problem. The 39-year-old's most consistent period came in the mid-2010s when the Big Three, talk about Novak Djokovic, Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal, were at their peak. The Frenchman reached a career-high ranking of 6th in the world in 2016 after reaching the semi-finals of the US Open when he was beaten by Djokovic. Monfils' run at Flushing Meadows was the second of 2 Grand Slam semi-final appearances in his career, having lost to Federer in the last 4 of the 2008 French Open. Now to the WTA category, where 16 seed Emma Navarro took down top seed Iga Swiatek in 3 sets on Wednesday, which was yesterday, to book her place in the WTA China Open quarterfinals, which happens to be her 8th of the season and first at WTA 1000 level. The result also gave the American her 4th career win against a top 5 opponent. Swiatek opened the match with an early break, but Navarro responded by breaking the world number 2 twice and holding on to take the first set at 6-4. The Pole battled back to claim the second set 6-4 before Navarro dominated the decider, closing out the match at 6-love. Swiatek, who committed 70 unforced errors, had won the only previous meeting in the quarterfinals of this year's Australian Open in straight sets, while dropping just 3 games. Navarro's run comes as part of a strong showing from American players in Beijing. She joined Scotty Kokogov, Jessica Pegula and Amanda Anisimova in the last 8, making it the first time since the tournament inception in 2004 that 4 Americans have reached the quarterfinals. This also marks the first time that 4 Americans have reached the quarterfinal at a Tier 1 WTA 1000 event outside of North America since Tokyo in 2003. Now to cricket, where the dream of qualifying for the 2026 ICC Men's T20 World Cup in India and Sri Lanka seems over for the Nigerian Yellow Greens. The Yellow Greens will now hope to end the qualifying tournament in a respectable position as they face Botswana in the first classification game in Zimbabwe. The Yellow Greens World Cup dreams were cut short on Tuesday after a 7-wicket defeat against Kenya in their last group game at the African qualifiers in Zimbabwe. If they beat Botswana, they would play in the 5th place classification final against the winner of the other game between Uganda and Malawi. Table toppers in Group A, Namibia, will square up against Tanzania for a place in the final. The two finalists will pick Africa's ticket to the World Cup. Now to the under-17, where the head coach of the side, also known as the Golden Eaglets, Manu Garba, is critical of the Confederation of African Football's decision to limit the number of teams that can qualify for the under-17 AFCON from WAFL B to 2 after Nigeria fell short at the regional qualifying tournament. The Golden Eaglets were beaten 2-0 in the second semi-final of the WAFL B tournament on Tuesday in the Ivory Coast, meaning they will not be part of the 2026 under-17 AFCON and by extension the 2026 FIFA Under-17 World Cup, which has now become an annual tournament. The setback comes after failing to reach the final of the previous edition in 2024, which cost them a place at the 2025 Under-17 AFCON and by extension the expanded FIFA Under-17 World Cup. After the latest setback, Garba will lead Nigeria to the FIFA Under-17 World Cup title in 2013, believes it is unfair to limit the zone, which has the strongest teams on the continent, to just 2 teams. Now to the UEFA Champions League, where substitute Goncalo Ramos struck a last-minute winner as Paris Saint-Germain became the first team to win 3 times away to Barcelona in the European competitions with a 2-1 victory at the Stade Olympique Louis Companys. Ramos sealed the Champions League comeback victory to the delight of PSG's former Barcelona's boss Luis Enrique after Achraf Hakimi had exposed the host high defensive line. Ferran Torres had put Barcelona ahead into 20 minutes to establish a club record by scoring in 45 consecutive games. The reigning European champions were leveled by halftime as Seni Mayulu, who is 19, converted in fine fashion. Lee Kang-in cornered the shots against the woodwork with 7 minutes left, and Paris Saint-Germain's strong finish was rewarded by the clinical Ramos. Both sides were without key players as Barcelona lined up minus goalkeeper Juan Garcia, Gavi, Fermin Lopez and Rafinha. Paris Saint-Germain's casualty list included captain Marquinhos, Desire Doué and Vicha Kvaratskhelia, and Ousmane Dembele as well, and there were more frustrations before kickoff as João Neves reported a problem in the warm-up. And these are all the stories we have for you on Sport Wrap-Up, but not to worry, we'll take just a quick break, and when we're back, we're going to give you a very exciting story in the world of sports. Stick around, we'll be right back.
It's really lovely.
An excellent morning to return to talk about the trending stories in the world of sports. Good morning and welcome to another extensive conversation in the world of sports this morning. We earlier saw, of course, Tina returning to talk about the trending stories in the world of sports. But this particular time, we will be analyzing and taking a critical look at what's happening in some of those stories and much more. I'm Mutube David, and I'm super delighted to return right here. We'll talk about all of that as well. Fun. Good morning to you. Good to do this with you in the absence of Blyden.
Exciting day to be back talking about the Champions League, and also Manu Garba came out to say that the West African Waffle B zone especially should be able to at least produce 3 teams, to the continent of Africa. And I agree with him, because when you look at the other zones which are producing more teams, we're talking about North zone producing 3. Talking about the the Central zone producing 3 as well. So I think the Waffle B zone has more quality teams, and when you keep a team like Nigeria, who is ranked number 1 in the under-17 zone, out of the AFCON competition, I think it's quite sad. So maybe CAF should also look into it and grant the man his request.
Well, we'll talk about that particular conversation. Coach Manu Garba and the boys no longer news. They have exited the under-17 Waffle B competition. And by virtue of missing out, it certainly means they won't be part of the upcoming FIFA under-17 World Cup. And what they are the most successful side at that particular tournament's history, 5-time champions, as a matter of fact. But we'll come back to the world of football shortly afterwards. Let's begin the conversation from the world of tennis. The China Open, currently up and running, especially the WTA category and the ATP as well. And one conversation was the conversation about a big upset in this tournament. Many were still asking, shall we see any upset? Well, it happened yesterday where Emma Navarro, who's 16 seeded in this competition, got the better of former world number 1, talk about Iga Swiatek, in 3 sets just yesterday to book a place at the China Open quarter final. Her 8th of the season, particularly, and first at WTA 1000 level. The result also gave the American a 4th career win against a top 5 opponent in the process. Well, the game, of course, spanned through 3 sets. 6-4 it ended in the first one, courtesy of the lady Iga Swiatek. But the lady battled back in the second, 6-4. And in this third set, she got the better of Swiatek, a 6-love, by not dropping any serve in that particular game. Well, Emma Navarro was showing class in this one, got the better of Swiatek in the first set. Swiatek returned in the second set, and in the third set, she finished the job. Got upset right here. At the point where many thought it would be another back-to-back title, of course, win for Iga Swiatek, coming off the back of another title win, to win another one. But it looks like she's out right here. And maybe many looking forward to Emma Navarro would end up. But this particular win, what does this mean now for Swiatek?
Well, I think it's just one of those minor setbacks. Tennis is always going to serve us with lots of upsets time and time again. And when you look at it, I think Iga Swiatek is doing quite well this year. This year was the year where she succumbed to, I think, world number 4 at a point, and now she's back to world number 2. It shows you how she's been able to face those adversities, and now go back to world number 2, a top-level superstar. But then losing to Emma Navarro, I think it's just a minor blip, and for Emma Navarro, something she's been looking for throughout this year. She's not really been able to, stamp a claim, not won any top-level competition this year. So defeating Iga Swiatek now, I think it's going to give her that needed confidence. And now you're talking about the American contingent. We have 4 of them. We're talking about Koriko Kogov, we're talking about Amanda Nisimova, and the last person there, Jessica Pegula as well. So I think it's quite good for the American contingent, building that a particular confidence, and now they can go into the WTA finals knowing that they're quite good, I think, Don. But she's still 16 seed, and getting to win this particular competition would also give her more hopes of qualifying for the year-end final. But as of now, 16 seeded, I'm looking forward to increase her ranking points. They don't wonder why she had enough motivation to defeat Iga Swiatek, who's already qualified to the WTA finals at the end of the year.
Well, of course, a very big conversation surrounds the US internationals, and just like you heard, number 5 seed Jessica Pegula came within 2 points of victory in the second set, but ultimately it needed 3 to get past number 23 seed Matthew Kustik in the China Open 4th round. So it is a case of the US internationals, but let's of course also look at it from this perspective. Now, 4 players from the United States making it to the China Open quarterfinals.
Yeah.
Does this mean we would at least have one of them with this title at the end of the tournament?
Well, it's the first time since 2003 we are having, 4 U.S. internationals making it to the quarterfinal of a Tier 1 WTA event, and it's quite exciting to see. It shows that probably this is the competition where they've given it their all. They've given it their best, likes of Pegula and Navarro. Talking about Korika Kokov as well as the lady, what's her name now? For Amanda Anisimova as well, who is also a Grand Slam champion this particular year. So I think it's quite good for their confidence. And now you're having 4 US internationals at the quarterfinals. You just have one match in the semi-final and then you are in the final. So I think if there's any competition where we were poised to see a US international, I think this is going to be the one. And hopefully we get to see them do so well, not just in this particular competition, but in the coming days, because it's always been that recurring conversation about US internationals. That consistency has it's never been a thing for them, especially since we saw Serena Williams call it a wrap on her career. She was the last US international we had who was really, really dominant, doing it time and time again. So probably there's a signal of more things to come for the US contingent in future. Probably 2026 might just be a year where we see the US internationals dominating in the WTA category.
But one would also look at another perspective as well, because it hasn't been the same story in the ATP for the US contingent. Maybe you could talk about a few of them, but hasn't really been that dominant seeing the male US contingent dominating. Maybe you could talk about Taylor Fritz. You could also look at another, of course, Ben Shelton has been doing quite well, but unfortunately, all the players are below par in terms of quality and consistency. Maybe an exemplary style by the ladies too, of course, for the men to follow as well. But still talking about the China Open in the WTA scene, British Sonny Carter claimed the biggest scalp of her career. She overcame world number 5 Mara Andreeva to reach the China Open quarterfinals. It ended 7-5, 2-6, 7-5 in a thrilling contest which lasted 2 hours and 25 minutes. So the lady now has actually advanced to the next stage. A British player. Not often we're going to talk about British players making it to the last 6, the last 4 of a tournament. But here is the lady, Carter, doing it against current world number 5, Mara Andreeva, in fine style.
Well, I think for Sonny Carter, she's riding off that back of that Billie Jean King Cup, prowess with the Great Britain side, where I think they were knocked out in the
semi-finals. Yeah.
So they did quite well to reach that level. So she's still bouncing off that momentum now, coming into the quarterfinal of this one. Mira Andreeva, a very good tennis player anytime any day. She's still a teenager. So when you compare her with Sonny Carter, you'd always expect Carter to have the experience of Mira Andreeva. Yes, she's seeded better than Carter at the moment, but then experience always time and time again prevail over youth when it comes to sports. Talking about football, talking about tennis, boxing, most times you see experience always having to prevail. So this is just one of those occasions where experience got the better of youthfulness. So for Sonny Carter, now the biggest question is how far can she go? Yes, you've defeated Andreeva now. Now you've got bigger names to beat. You've got just like we talk about the American contingent. You've got Jessica Pegula in there. You've got bigger names, Amanda Anisimova in there. So what can Sonny Carter do? This is the first quarterfinal of her year. So I think it's going to be very good for her if she can get past the quarterfinal and even move to the semi-final stage as well.
Well, of course, we're looking forward to all of these games and what could potentially happen, especially for the British contingent. Emma Raducanu tried her best this year, but unfortunately, you know how it actually pans out, especially when you do not have much momentum. She has been knocked out severally in cup and top competitions, particularly this year. Maybe next year would also be something very handy for her. But at the ATP category, the start of the singles at the China Open started off yesterday, and we had several matches and several wins, not to top-seeded names. Top-seeded names will, of course, participate in the second and the third round, some of them being drawn by. So we'll have, of course, an extensive conversation as it has to do with that. But just some topical names right here, the likes of Stan Wawrinka, who unfortunately was being beaten by Marozan, the likes of Marlon Cilic, Manarino, all advancing in the Shanghai or the China Open, if you want to call it that way, in the first round of this particular competition. Adrian Manarino overcame former world number 6 Matteo Berrettini 7-5, 7-6 to reach the second round. The Frenchman has performed well on hard court in recent months, reaching the 4th round at the US Open and in the Cincinnati. Sebastian Baez also defeated favorite Zhang Zheng 2-6, 6-3, 6-4, while Cesar Bex defeated American Sebastian Korda 6-love, 7-5. Daniel Almarte defeated Christian Scholket 6-3, 6-4, while Jordan Thompson eliminated Danish qualifier August Holmgren 4-6, 6-3, 6-4 in the process. So those are, of course, the games that happened yesterday. More games expected in no distant time to come by tomorrow and even the next. We should talk about more games in the ATP category as it has to do with the China Open. But just before we leave the ATP conversation this morning, it has been confirmed that Gael Monfils will be retiring in the year 2026. He said that he feels that his playing time is gradually coming to an end at the age of 39 years. He also kept a record, becoming the oldest ATP Tour champion at the age of 38 and 4 months when he won the Auckland Open. That was this year, January. And of course, by next year, he will be 40 years of age. He's won 13 titles in his career. And of course, as a matter of fact, by next year, we should have Gael Monfils calling it quit on what many would term a successful career so far. Well, at the point where you, of course, also, discovering the very fact that your body cannot carry you any longer, you have to call it quit. And Gael Monfils is saying, one last dance. Next year, I am retiring.
Well, unfortunately for the man, he's never reached the Grand Slam status.
Absolutely.
But now, it's going to be a last dance for him. And then I think he can still look back at his career with fondness because he's reached the world number 6, and that was in the time of the likes of Novak Djokovic, Andy Murray, Rafael Nadal, and the likes of them. So I think he's done quite well for himself. A very athletic player who knows how to take you to the byline and give you all those very interesting serves. Absolutely. So at the end of it, I think he's going to be remembered fondly by tennis lovers because Gael Monfils is always going to write his name. I just hope that next season he can get to win at least one more title. He won one this year in Auckland in January. So if he gets to win at least one next year again, we can still say it's a good ride, a good end story for the man Gael Monfils.
14 titles, not so bad. Of course, if you want to talk about some players who have won tour-level titles, but have been so fortunate in winning Grand Slam titles, you would mention the likes of Alexander Zverev and the rest of other players who've just there, Stefanos Tsitsipas as well. But I think Gael Monfils, you shouldn't wait any longer for a Grand Slam. Get your ATP titles and call it quits, and that's what the man is looking forward to do in 2026. And just so you know, the Yellow Greens of Nigeria still engaging in the qualifiers, that's the World Cup qualifiers, and they'll be looking forward to take on Botswana with their dream of qualifying for the 2026 ICC Men's T20 World Cup in India and Sri Lanka officially over. The Male Greens will hope to end the qualifying tournament in a respectable position as they face Botswana in their first classification game in Zimbabwe. Well, many would say they are actually playing for pride right here. Their hopes are all over in qualifying for the World Cup. But one last dance could also prove to be something to take back home and build from there prior to more competitions to come.
Well, I'm sure no one expected the Yellow Greens to even be playing at the World Cup, so that would have been an achievement by this, and I think they've done enough already. And now at
least one win in this tournament.
Exactly, they defeated Malawi, and now you're looking at Malawi even topping that group at the end. No, they didn't top the group; they finished second. And Namibia topped the group, so I think it's quite good for them. And now they get to face Botswana, and if they win the match, they get to play for 5th place against the winner of the other side. So I feel it's quite good for the Yellow Greens. It just has to be a proper development. What happens after this particular finish? This particular year, you've not done so well. Next year, it has to be an improvement, not maybe a decreasing of performance now. So I just hope that Steve Tikola and the boys would get the needed support from the NCF, the Cricket Federation, to do quite well, because talking about the Cricket Federation has been one of the most interesting federation in Nigeria, especially in 2025. Hadouyi Akpata doing so well for them. So I just hope they can continue. There is nowhere you'd see proper development and proper things being done for this last. I'm sure they would go on and do so better in maybe the next appearances at the World Cup qualifiers. But for now, I think they can hold their head high up there and finish it on a high note.
Well, at the point we're made is still talking about Nigeria being a developing nation in the world of cricket. How many years can we actually, of course, give this particular federation to make them be a force to reckon with, particularly on the continent of Africa?
Well, I would say there's no need for an ultimatum. The Cricket Federation is still budding at this point. We're still having players who are still trying to grasp at the rudiment of the cricket game. Still, I don't even know how cricket is played. I don't know how cricket is played for real. And then, so it shows you that it's quite a new sport in Nigeria. It's going to be quite difficult for you to just say, oh, you need to give them 5 years. You have to go to the World Cup. You need to give you 2 years, 3 years, this and that. I think let them grow at their own pace, have proper development. We've seen they're doing so better at the age grade system. We saw I think the female Yellow Greens under 17 South 19 side go to the World Cup this year. So probably 5 years from now, when that side have matured enough to be able to play for the senior national team, we can expect them to go to the World Cup. So that's just how it should be for now.
Well, development is what we're looking forward to see in the world of cricket. And Nigeria, one of the fastest growing nations, as it has to do with cricket in the last 2 years. More and more development we're expecting to also engage as well. But we'll draw the curtains here. When we return, we'll be talking about football stories, with the conversation also surrounding the UEFA Champions League, the Europa League and the Conference League are set to return today. We'll talk more on the flip side. Do stay with us. Welcome back. It is still Sports Central, and now we'll be talking about football stories all across the globe. Before we talk about the Champions League, let's begin the conversation right here in the shores of the country, and it has to do with conversations surrounding the Nigeria Women's Football Championship. That's the second tier of women's football games right here in the shores of the country. We hear that the NWFL has officially announced the new kickoff dates and venue and schedule for the NWFL Nationwide League. The championship is scheduled to take place from October 10 to 17 at the Buhari Township Stadium in Abuja. That's the Federal Capital Territory. So we'll definitely keep close tabs and look at the developments that's happening over there and what should take place before the end of that particular championship. But let's quickly head straight now to the camp of the Flying Eagles of Nigeria. And it has to do with the ongoing FIFA Under-20 World Cup. Well, the Flying Eagles of Nigeria lost their first game to Norway. And later today, make that tomorrow, 12 a.m., that would be midnight. Of course, going to tomorrow, Nigeria will play against Saudi Arabia. And Coach Manu Garba and the boys are looking for redemption. No points so far in the group. And there is a major call for concern, especially as it has to do with African teams in the ongoing FIFA Under-20 Championship. Well, the only African team that have been able to get victory so far is the Morocco Under-20 national team. For the likes of Egypt, talk about Nigeria, talk about South Africa, they have been found wanting. Nigeria takes on Saudi Arabia in their second group game of the World Cup. Can Nigeria get that redemption they're looking forward to against Saudi Arabia?
Well, I think if there's any game they are poised to win, it should be against Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia just recently they really started taking football very seriously, so it's going to be quite sad if the Flying Eagles are also unable to get a victory against Saudi Arabia. So I think Ali Zubaru's boys are quite poised to get this win, because if they don't get the win, it signals the end of their competition. Lost the first game, and now the second game is here, so it's either 3 points or nothing. And maybe 1 point could even give them a hope of doing well in the next game, but 3 points or nothing at this stage. And for the Flying Eagles, I think a lot of Nigerians will expect quite better. We talked about them at the Under-20 AFCON, didn't do so well, and we had lots of question marks surrounding that team. Went to the WAFOP tournament. The coach of the side made mention of the fact that he's fixed some problems, and now we are at the World Cup, we're still having some difficulties concerning that particular team. So I would say it has to be a make or man game for Nigeria against Saudi Arabia later, maybe in the morning, 12 a.m. Yeah, that time is in the morning. So
what counts now for Nigeria heading into this game?
I would say maybe the players who saw out the Under-20 AFCON should be brought back into the game, because we talked about the likes of Daniel Daga just coming into the side 1 day before their first game. So all those preparatory games where we played against Chile, we played against Australia, he wasn't part of it. So I'm sure there's going to be some sort of tweaks, some sort of tactical tweaks in that particular setup to accommodate Daniel Daga. It's not the same side that Ali Zubaru lined up against all the warm-up games he saw out there. So I think he should revert back to what worked for him. Maybe if it doesn't work, the next game you can bring back the likes of Daniel Daga.
Well, of course, a huge call for concern. Can Nigeria get their redemption much later today? Is a very huge conversation right here. If they lose this particular game once again, that it might just signal the end of the road for the side, despite having maybe one more game at the group stage to play. This is a very deciding moment for Nigeria in the ongoing FIFA Under-20 World Cup, and we just hope that things will change for the better in the second game against Saudi Arabia. We'll return tomorrow. We'll talk more about that particular game and what to expect, or what we saw rather, in the early hours of tomorrow. Well, away from that now, the Super Falcons striker, talk about the lady Asisat Oshoala, has been named the Saudi Women's Premier League Player of the Month for September. Well, the lady have also had quite a remarkable start to life in Saudi Arabia. Recall last season, she was with BAFC, NWFL side in the United States, but she made that switch to Saudi Arabia and has already hit the ground running. 3 goals and 2 assists to her name, and that particular, of course, stats have also earned her the best player of the month in the Saudi Pro League. She plays for Al Hilal. What a time and what a start for the lady Asisat Oshoala, this one.
Well, I think it's quite good for her. A lot of Nigerians were saying this is the tail end of her career.
Yeah,
now
gradually winding down, going to not so tougher leagues.
Exactly, but she's
Well,
just
looks like she's actually adding up the numbers.
she's just 30. When you look at the likes of China Bob Marti, who won the Ballon d'Or, still closing to that 30 as well. Likes of Ewa Paho at Barcelona, 31. So I think Oshoala is not too old. It's just the fact that probably she's African, and most of these top teams do not really fancy her chances of playing for them. But I think she's still a top level, player anytime. And that's why I was very, very annoyed with her sitting on the bench at BFC week in, week out. She was not having games. So now at Al Hilal, she's getting to play more and showing what she can do, because I feel she still got quality in those legs. She still has something to offer, and I'm very happy to see her win the Saudi League Player of the Month. Now another motivation for her to do more.
Added motivation for her to do more is the conversation. More wins, more good performances we're expecting for the lady Asisat Oshoala with her new club side. But let's quickly, of course, travel straight to Europe now and look at the UEFA Champions League with games that happened yesterday. Starting off with the Newcastle United, they were able to, of course, get the better of Union Saint-Gilloise. Well, that particular game ended 4-0 in favor of Newcastle. Nick Walter-Mader scored. The likes of Anthony Gordon and Harvey Barnes all had comprehensive goals for the side in that particular game. We also saw Bukayo Saka of Arsenal and Gabriel Martinelli all combining to give Arsenal a 2-0 victory over Olympiacos in this one. Well, after the game, Mikel Arteta came out to say, we're beginning to see the best of Martin Odegaard, because he was actually benched from some game due to that particular injury worries, and due to the depth they've had in the squad, they have been able to, of course, offer the man least playing time to rediscover his form. But a 2-goal, of course, game, and a 2-goal victory for Arsenal over Olympiacos, want to build upon.
I think a basic victory for them. I saw Arsenal, they were just doing the basics. I saw Mikel Arteta also, granting start to some players who've not really had playing time. Louis Skelly started that game on the left back. Ben White also started on the right back. So it was more of giving some French players the opportunity to also play as well, to have a very happy squad. So it was quite good to have that victory against talking about Olympiacos. So I think when you look at this particular victory for Arsenal against a team like Olympiacos, it's always going to be that particular topic, because now Victor Gyökeres is still finding it difficult to hit the back of the net. We're talking about Bukayo Saka as well, playing, coming off the bench, but couldn't also get a goal contribution in that match. I think it also signals the fact that maybe Arsenal's forward line still needs some form of chemistry. Maybe they are just used to that Kai Havertz partnership there with the front line, but now at the moment they're getting used to the likes of Gyökeres, Eberechi, all these new players trying to gel with the team. But I'm sure it's going to come in the coming days.
Well, of course, let's also look at another game. It was Manchester City playing against Monaco. Well, Eric Dyer, former Tottenham Hotspur player, denied Manchester City that win in Monaco, even, of course, when Erling Haaland had a brace in that particular game. We're having that conversation about the level of inconsistency faced by Pep Guardiola's side this particular season. Nico Gonzalez was also given a chance in this game. A few other players who haven't really played was also given a chance. But Pep Guardiola and the boys still seem to be lacking something that made them quite outstanding the last 2 seasons. Last season was also the same thing for them. But that looks to be, of course, lacking that seeding connection that had them being consistent, find run of form every single game. What does Pep Guardiola need now to, of course, be getting results now on a consistent basis? Last season, it was actually crying about Rodri, but it looks like Rodri is back, and it has been the same old story.
Well, Rodri was actually pulled out of that game, I think, in the 60th minute, and he brought in Nico Gonzalez to play for the man. So it shows that he's trying to rotate the squad and keep everyone happy. He talked about not wanting too many players at his disposal this particular year, because he does not know how to play everyone at the same time. So I think that's also one of the problems around, because maybe if Rodri has seen out had stayed in the game to the end of the match, probably would have had a different story. But for Manchester City, I think there are no excuses. Haaland came out to say they did not play well as a team. I believe they would have taken more chances. If probably that game had been 4-1 or 3-1 as at the 80th minute, it would have been difficult for Monaco to come back into it. But when they're 2-1, when you're leading 2-1, that's a very slim victory to hang on to the dying minute of the game. You're always going to invite the other team to ask all the questions. And that's what happened yesterday for Manchester City. 4 points from a possible 6. It's not too bad for them. They can build on that and get to do more in the coming Champions League games.
Well, still talking about the Champions League, Barcelona couldn't get the better of current holders of the UEFA Champions League title. It was a game that many were looking forward to seeing between Ousmane Dembele, the current holder of the Ballon d'Or, and Lamine Yamal, who finished second in that particular list. But unfortunately, Ousmane Dembele sat out due to injury worries, and Lamine Yamal made that comeback in the starting 11 for Barcelona. Rafinha was out of the encounter, but they had Lamine Yamal on the right, the man Marcus Rashford on the left. Unfortunately, they couldn't get the better of Paris Saint-Germain. They started off with Ferran Torres scoring in the 19th minute of that game, while Paris Saint-Germain had to pack them back, courtesy of a youngster, Seni Mayulu, scoring the 38th minute, and Gonzalo Ramos left it late in the 90th minute to seal the win for Paris Saint-Germain. And that's what happened yesterday. PSG finally heading home with maximum 3 points. Does this show the level of ability PSG have over top opponent? Well, after this game, Hansi Flick said, we are not yet at the level of Paris Saint-Germain?
Well, I think it's just a minor setback for Barcelona. Paris Saint-Germain actually had more injury worries than Barcelona heading into that game. In fact, John Evans
Vivas Varaskelia missed. Osman Dembele also missed the game. Desire Doué also missed the game.
And Marquinhos as well, the captain of the side. So when you look at it, I think it was expected that Barcelona should take more, control of this particular game, but it was not to be. So I think it was a game of two halves. The first half was more Barcelona controlled. The second half, Barcelona had just one shot in the entire second half. Showed you how Paris Saint-Germain were able to come back into the game. They have that winner's mentality. No matter how the result of the game might be at the points, they always have that mentality that we can come back and get a result. That's what happened yesterday. Trailing at that point, but still having that mentality to dig back and get the victory in that particular game. For Paris Saint-Germain, it was another chance for Nuno Mendes to show why he's one of the best left backs. I think that boy deserves to be the best left back in the world at this point. There's no, conversations around it whatsoever. Played for Portugal against Spain, pocketed Lamine Yamal, not just playing as a defensive.
You would also say Lamine Yamal quite inexperienced as well. Maybe still.
Both of them are still very young. Both of them are still very young. I think Nuno Mendes is 22 or thereabouts, so are still very young when you compare to other players of that caliber. So I think for Nuno Mendes, he's quite good. He's won the man of the match now for Paris Saint-Germain in that particular game. And Achraf Hakimi is well out to set up the final goal. So it shows that having very good fullbacks can also give you a very good, push in the team.
But does it signal, of course, the level at where Barcelona are this season? Does it mean they won't go find them in this particular year for Champions League? Because for a coach to make that statement, it certainly mean they may not probably be ready for the contending for the UEFA Champions League, looking at the quality of teams playing in that particular league.
Well, I think there are not many teams who have the quality we've seen in Paris Saint-Germain, honestly. To be very precise, I think Paris Saint-Germain are maybe the best team in Europe at the moment. Real Madrid, we've seen them this season getting beaten by Atletico Madrid by 5-2. Other teams are still trying to find their footing or probably in a transitional period. Paris Saint-Germain have already had that with Luis Enrique. In fact, I think this is his third season or thereabouts. So the man has settled in quite well. His tactics are in full gear in Paris Saint-Germain. So for Barcelona, just that minor setback. Probably we'll get to see them maybe reach, and hopefully the next time they get to meet Paris, because those are the postulation. We're still feeling that Paris Saint-Germain might get to meet Barcelona maybe in the playoff round again. Probably by that time they'll be ready for the battle.
Well, Napoli were able to, of course, get the better of Sporting Lisbon in their game. Rasmus Højlund scored twice, former Manchester United striker, and after that match he came out to thank Kevin De Bruyne with his level of vision, particularly setting up players for goals. And with the way things are going, it just looks like he may score many goals for Napoli this season. At the points where you think that some players are the cause of Manchester United downfall, they keep proving otherwise. Højlund, that was struggling for goals, scoring goals for fun in Italy. That's the conversation. But just before we bounce, the UEFA Europa League games returns today. I would like to, of course, see the fixture on the screens this particular morning, with mouth-watering fixtures scattered across the French centres later today. The likes of AS Roma will take on Lille, Bologna will take on Freiburg much later today. Young Boys will also be in action. They will face FCSP. Fenerbahce will take on Nice. Panathinaikos will take on Go Ahead Eagles much later today. Aston Villa will be in action against Feyenoord Rotterdam. We'll also have the Conference League also returning much later today as well. Crystal Palace will take on Dynamo Kiev. Those are one of the fixtures we're expecting much later today in the UEFA Conference League and the UEFA Europa League. Well, we'll draw the curtains here on this morning edition of Sports Central. Thank you very much for also joining the conversation. We'll return tomorrow for more extensive conversation in the world of sport. Thank you very much and fun for doing this with you.
Pleasure as always.
Well, of course, the man Vladimir Kim was unavoidably absent. Hopefully returns tomorrow for all of these conversations in the world of sport. Time with Toby David. Thank you very much for watching. Until we return tomorrow, stay out of trouble and bye for now.